let me quote to you from your book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the book Dream with Your Eyes Open. And I'm going to quote: Failure fascinates and intrigues me. I've never understood why people are so afraid of failing. Failure is a part of life. Everyone fails. I know I have. I am routinely asked questions about my various entrepreneurial experiences, and most want to hear about the successes. Why don't they ask about the failures? It would give me more to talk about. Unquote. So I want to start with that.
Fantastic. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you picked that paragraph. It's a very important one.
So tell me first, what has been your biggest failure?
Well, I think it's yet to come.
Okay, okay, amazing.
Yeah, no, and I think it's for all of us, because if I've already calibrated my biggest failure, then
Okay,
I'm kind of winding down, or I'm actually being I'm being risk averse, is what I would say. So I think, yeah, you never know what's going to be around the bend. I think your job is to see what the future holds, and I think the fun for me has been to be maybe two steps ahead on trends, to understand the consumer. And when you do that, you're going to turn a bend, and maybe you get hit by a truck, and the idea is to try and avoid it. But to give maybe a little bit more of a direct answer, I think it's been multiple times at multiple. So maybe I can
few
categorize
of
that
them.
in two parts. Like, one is obviously, um, almost everything that I started, it started with a lot more failures, and I can come to that in a second. But my ratio of failures to success genuinely is about 8 failures to 2 successes. And I kind of really evangelize that wherever I can, because I think most people feel, okay, even in your failure, okay, you failed 5 times and you succeeded 5 times. And I'm saying, no, actually, I think I've definitely failed more times. But I think, to me, that's been the definition of why maybe you invited me and I'm sitting here and having this conversation with you. Because what happens is that when you calibrate yourself, when you fail, whatever that may be, it could be a bad decision on a person or business, a timing. You decided to pull the plug actually, and 2 months later or 5 months later, you'd have seen success. Those are also failures. Failures doesn't mean every time you have to fall down or you need to be bankrupt. Missed opportunities are failures, getting many things wrong. And I think for me, all of those are a minus 1x. You fail, and that's whatever you put in time, effort is a zero. But because of that, your successes will be 20x and 30x. And therefore, if you add that, if I do 2 successes of 20x, that's 40. And if I do 8 failures, that's minus 8. I'm still plus 32 if I just do the maths. The reason I'm saying that is, you can't get to 20x for your successes if you haven't had more minus 1x's in life. And I think I've not strategically built my career around that, but I think that's the flow. It's a little bit with a vision of hindsight and looking forward. And that, to me, is the reason why I say, why is everyone so scared about talking about failures? Because actually it gets you more revved up. The more you can do that, the more you can get into an F1 car.
So, can we talk about some specific failures and what you might have learned from those?
Yeah. So I think, firstly, I think a definition of a failure means at that time, it seems like the abyss.
Yes,
But if I
it
have to
does.
define any failure today that happened 2 months back or 20 years back, I won't be able to talk about it like a failure, because obviously one has lived past that. So I think that's the other part that I think is very important for people to understand, that you can only describe a failure in that moment. Try describing your failures of 2 years back and 5 years back. Normally you have a smile about it. Why? Because you've lived through it. And I think that is the part. So maybe the first cross section for me was actually starting to be an entrepreneur, right? I came from a lower middle class family. My dad's a professional, my brother's been a professional, and here I was wanting to start something completely on my own, knowing full well, and with a exit statement from my dad saying, go out there,
Yeah,
start on your own, but I'm not going to be able to support you financially if
if
you
you
fall
fail.
off the cliff.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at that, the first venture one started was cable TV. Now, one would have thought that going to a house and telling people that you only have one single channel and I'm going to put a cable in, you'll have a multiple choice, sounds like a humdinger. Like, how can everyone say no? For the full first 1 year, we didn't get one single customer. I would have personally banged about $2,000, $3,000. We'd have We've gone to every society committee making a presentation of what cable TV was. Almost the 30 people member staff that I had on some days where I couldn't pay their salary were saying, Ronnie, so long, shall we move on to something else?
Mm.
So the question is, at what stage in that 1 year would I have called it a failure? Because the other part of failure is timing. Because on the 360th day, if I'd call it a failure, but we got our first building that said yes on the 366th day.
And you did it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But part of it is exactly staying the course to quite an extent. I can give you another example. I started home shopping, and the reason you haven't put it there is because it was a failure amongst many failures. You listed a few. I can tell you a lot. And at that stage, for the first 2 years, was an incredible success because we were on Doordarshan from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. selling chapati makers to all kinds of products way before. But it was early days. Postal codes were not there. Credit card was not there. And after 2 years, Doordarshan decided, no, I can't be selling consumer items and consumerism. And one fine day, they just pulled the plug.
Oh my God.
And we didn't have anything else.
Okay.
And we still had, and we sort of thought for the next 2 years, what we'll do this, we'll do e-commerce. And then I said, no, I think this is before its time. And I pulled the plug and I shut it down. Was that a failure? Absolutely not. In retrospect, if I had stuck around it, I think that business would have been bigger than Flipkart and Amazon put together in India, because we were there in that same context, but in a different time, But I could have also been bankrupt and fleeing the country.
No, but this is the whole point. I think young people today, there's a whole lot of younger, at a time when you came out, okay, you had, and you've talked about it, that there was no environment for entrepreneurship. It was not celebrated. There was no ecosystem for funding, and
Yeah.
the kind of visibility was just not there. So young people who today have this brilliant idea may find somebody who's going to be able to back that idea. But I still think there is inherent, reservation that people have about failing, because it may mean that, they're going back to nothing.
Yeah.
Okay. And you talk about that. You
Yeah.
talk about saying that, okay, I came from a middle class family, and if I fail, how bad could it be? But is there a comfort today that you actually will never go back to that? And therefore, do you get my question? Do you get the drift of what I'm asking you?
It is a very difficult one because you have to cross the fence. I mean, you have to cross that fence sometime or the other. And I would say, let's be very clear. Today in this world, there are no securities for anything else. I mean, if 20 years back, my parents would tell me, marry somebody and I can guarantee you're going to be happy for the rest of your life, I don't think you can say that to your kids today. It's not going to
Yeah.
happen, right? Or if somebody's in a job today, I can tell you right now, what you thought was job security 10 years back is zero today. Sure, if you work for the government, it's a little bit higher, but
Higher.
not totally zero. Otherwise, there are no securities in life. So why don't we start with that base camp today? Because I think people start looking at that fear psychosis, and that's the starting step, right? Because you're starting saying, I'm not going to venture here because this sounds like I've got my
Safer.
feet on the ground.
Yes.
Well, guess what? You don't have your feet on the ground. And if you think you have your feet on the ground, remember it's going to be so momentary. And you might not think it's momentary because you feel, at least this is my safe zone. I think today people have to understand there isn't a safe zone. Because if you start understanding that, then you'll
Yes.
get edgy, you'll get fidgety, from that will come the element of slight risk taking because you feel, oh God, before I get plunged into that, why don't I do it on my terms? And I would say, please go experience failures on your own terms, because you don't want failure knocking on your door when you think, I'm not opening the door, because the door is not going to be closed forever.
Brilliant. No, I think this is very important for young people, because those who are holding themselves back have to realize exactly what you said, that there is nothing like a safety net. There is nothing
there
like a
isn't.
career which is
No.
going to be steady.
No.
It just doesn't exist anymore. And
Yeah.
that is a reality. So I think it's a brilliant thing.
And I genuinely, I say that again and I'd repeat it, doing it on your own terms a little bit is just a lot more powerful because you're a little bit in control. You can absorb it and then you can go forward on it. But there's no way out of it.
Yeah. But I have to again touch upon, you've gone into many industries. One of them has been the media industry. You made movies. you made something like 97 movies and TV shows, etc. Now, movies are a very public, immediate
Slap in your face.
barometer.
Slap in your
Slap
face.
in your face. You know whether you
Yeah,
succeeded or
yeah, yeah.
not, and it's very public.
Yeah.
Okay, the unlike a business that you start, only your banker or your family and a few friends may
Absolutely.
know about it.
Absolutely.
So how do you handle this sort of one movie can be a great success, and then you have the next one which is sort of where you spent so much of money and it's just gone, and more than gone, it's the kind of reviews and people panning you
Yeah.
across social media or critics.
Yeah. So look, I would say two ways. How did I maybe handle that? I think my entrepreneurial. I've never been. I don't see myself as a film producer. I see myself as an entrepreneur in a creative industry. So with that DNA, how did I handle it? I think we diversified our entire business model. We had 10 broadcast channels. We had an animation studio. We had a post-production studio. So it was a very diverse model. Actually, films was 25% of our business. So
Okay.
clinically, how did I handle it? This was my diversification. Primarily because I was taking external money. My responsibility to shareholders was as much as it would be to the community in the project I was handling. That would be sort of one aspect. So I think when you look at whatever you're doing in your risk taking, where there are risk binary paths to an outcome, you have to diversify to a certain extent to be able to take your risk. I think to the element of public failure, actually, when you're in the B2C business today, it is a public failure. Now, I know movies just has a lot more glamour, and sports stars go through the same, right? I mean, you're putting all of your cricket captain and your best batsman up out there. 4 weeks later, he just doesn't do well and he's down in the dumps. 2 weeks later, he's up in the air. The point is, nobody's going to be able to handle that trough and trove. You just go ahead and play the best game you got to play at that particular point in time, and audiences will come in and they'll go out. So all I would say is, even today, when you're running a B2C business anywhere, it is a public failure. You have a bad quarter, you're going to get wrapped on the knuckles. You might get wrapped for this thing. You're going to have a 5% drop in your share price. Now the 5% is outdated. If you just say 3 lines that says for the next 2 quarters, I may or may not grow, 50% of your market cap is wiped out.
Wiped out.
So to me, there are enough public binary cases that are happening here. So what you say, how you behave, and I think today, even in leadership, the test is about leaders in many ways. So I think while we put movies on a pedestal, there is enough of that in terms of what you would say today public failure that can actually, and you just need to have your own self-confidence of that's fine, but I have a track record. If you have zero track record, then it's different. If you're doing it as a hobby and it's once, then it'll stick with you. And then if you go into a shell, it's even worse.
But just talking about movies, you're one of the few people who have actually transcended both Hollywood and Bollywood. You made so many here, and you made two, I would actually think, commercially successful Hollywood films.
Yeah.
You made one with M. Night Shyamalan, where you were the executive producer, and you made another one where you had
With Meera Nair, namesake.
namesake, and you did one more where you had Chris Rock in
Yes,
that.
yes.
So,
yes.
what made you give up the whole Hollywood trajectory?
Well, I would say naivety, to be honest, because I just, and I still feel that in India, we haven't exercised the soft power of what media and storytelling should be. We have more and better, stronger, and more resilient stories to tell. And I just feel sometimes very frustrated and irritated that, US has this aura of being, yeah, sure, it has a very powerful military and it has the capitalism that it does have. But the soft power that they have used to completely create an aura on them, India should be right up there. Because now, today, if we think we're going to be in the top 3 economies in the world, without soft power or without a destination of tourism where people can experience the country, when you come in here and you see the people and how they think and how we're so different in our approach, how we think things through, that's really the real value and wealth creation that's going to go. So I think in my part, that was just a trickle of trying to do something to show that, hey, we're around and we're not insulated.
Why did you pull back? Was it the crisis of 2008 or what?
No, I think at that time I didn't hold back. I just felt, to be honest, on that one, I just felt that the Hollywood studio system was a mafia by itself in any case. right? And they have their own accounting norms, they have their whatever else. So unless I could go in there with a sense of power or with a sense of equalism, and I didn't feel equal when I did that. So I didn't feel equal, and I just felt I'll do it on my own terms, or I'll take a few steps back and figure that out.
So you forayed into it,
Yeah,
you tested it out, and
yeah,
then you came back with these
yeah.
conclusions and said,
And look,
okay,
those
your
models
time.
sometimes work. I mean, I think we have another industrialist who went there, tied up with Steven Spielberg, did his best there. But again, there, I think the trip up was you need to do it. So I think I also recoiled that if I wanted to do soft power, we should do it on our terms. And I was being naive, and that's why I said naive, that I was trying to do it on their terms and trying to join them. And I think even when we started here, I've always been the outsider, even in the movie business. And I think the only thing is, if you can't beat them, join them is a archaic phrase, I think, today, in everything that one does. And I think if I had to sum up some of my things of where I've stood out, is when I've not followed. If you can't beat them, join them. And if you say
Yeah.
you can't beat them, then figure it out some other way.
Because they may not want you to join
It
them.
won't. Yeah.
You won't be
So
able
there,
to.
I would say, I still feel today we're so under positioned as a soft power.
So tell me, I want to go back to a little bit about your upbringing. You said you came from this middle class family, a Parsi family, staying at Grant Road. Your father was in a multinational.
Well, he got into multinational much later. When we were staying at Grant Road, he used to, I think, work at Estrella Batteries and then at in one of the Tata Voltas.
So tell me about your childhood. Tell me about growing up. What was it like? What were some of the highlights or disappointments or
Well, I was in a school called Dunn's Institute,
okay?
right? And they made you wear these conical caps, and like a Dunn's Institute made you feel like you were really down, out, and out there.
Literally a dunce,
Yes, yeah, like
like a
Duns.
dunce.
Yes, yes. And we made a whole school play in the Duns Institute about Duns,
Okay.
about people, like, and wearing like a topi pena diya kind
Huh.
of situation. So I think the, and I think the Grant Road part for me was, it just gives you a different kind of a grounding from that perspective, because we were living in a joint family. So it was just 4 rooms in a row and a passage in between and one toilet at the end.
And how many and separate kitchens?
No, 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 no. Just my 2 aunts, mom and dad, my brother, my mom's dad and mom. So there were eight of us in these 4 different rooms with one bathroom. Where if you didn't get up at that 6:45, then you had to wait till 7:45 if you wanted to go there. Um,
So
but
what did you learn and experience at that time? We're growing up in this family, and
also the kind of social interaction you have with people, right? It's at a very different level. You understand very different norms there. My 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 mom and aunts were a piano teacher, so they would have pupils from that part. Um, it was. I mean, the high point was cycling everywhere. I mean, because there was no concept of anything else on a car. So there's a BST bus, and a cycle was your mode of transport at that particular point in time. So just very,
but a
I
nice
wouldn't.
wholesome upbringing, would you say,
Yeah, very
or
warm, but very down
wanting
to earth.
or any sort of wanting experiences or
I think it lowers your sense of entitlement in life totally. And I've seen that. I've seen that with a lot of people. And that doesn't mean that you're a brat when you're entitled. And it doesn't mean that you need to be in the manner born to be entitled. I just think a lot of people grow up with a sense of entitlement even when they don't have too many of the opportunities. But I think my sense of entitlement got killed at that stage, or it just wasn't there. And I'm
even
very grateful about that part, because I think that's a very sliver line between you feeling ambitious,
hmm,
but not feeling entitled.
where did this bug come from? The entrepreneur, the ability to really say, I'll be on my own, I'll borrow money or whatever it is.
Yeah. I
Um,
think at that very early stage, when I would say theater and what I used to do as my hobbies was definitely something that was forming in my mind, because theater allowed me to, for the first time, to earn money. It was pocket money, but it gave you some sense of money. You were doing it as a hobby. Then I used to do front of camera hosting. So somewhere down the line, I was earning income without being in a job. So at that
okay.
stage, it gets you to a certain level where firstly you're not
Hmm,
getting an allowance
hmm.
and you're earning pocket money. If you understand that, it's today it's not relatable, but at that time, either you got an allowance if you were young, or you were to the manor born, or whatever else. So not having any of those just made me feel it was natural. Like I've got to earn myself. I don't need to necessarily have a job. And I think the second one I would say, a little bit in retrospect, is the only deal I did with my father when he said, do my chartered accountancy. And I said, no, I don't want to do it because that means I'll have a plan B. And I don't want to get into a plan B because if I did my chartered accountancy, chance of me having been an entrepreneur would have been there because I already had a plan B, like I had a degree. So he asked me to join an advertising agency. He was by that time in a multinational. And there was this advertising agency called Interpub at that stage.
Mm.
And this very vivacious lady who headed it called Nargis Wadia.
Who?
Nargis Wadia.
Okay.
And she said, yes, yes, come on over. So I did a 3-month job there as a copywriter. And I think in those 3 months, my realization, which was not so mature at that stage, but I can articulate now, is that I'm not going to be good executing somebody else's vision. Somewhere at that young age, I just felt antsy. And, cut to many, many, many years later, when I divested UTV to the Walt Disney Company, and I carried on with them. And at the end of 1 year from there, the chairman, Andy Bird and Bob Iger both, I just went to them and I said, look, I know we said I'll be here for a long time, but I have to say, I don't think I can execute on somebody else's vision. I love the Disney brand, but maybe I'm not the guy to build the Disney brand in India. I can't identify with that level. I have to build my own vision. And I knew at that stage when I said that's exactly what I said to myself 20 years before that.
Tell me, you're in many industries. We talked about it. You're in sports. You're and that too you're also in esports, which is
Yeah.
different from just being a owner of
Yeah, I think
sports teams.
my bulk today is really education and forever learning.
And education, and you're still in media, etc. But is it a conscious decision to be across all these different
I think
industries?
I
Or
would say my major focus in the for-profit space is the skilling, workforce development, and forever learning education space. And my focus in the not-for-profit is our Swadesh Foundation. And some people play golf. I still make movies.
yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. That okay, maybe we'll start there. What sort of makes you get up every morning, and what, first of all, what is your routine like? What time do you wake up? How
Yeah,
do you sort of spend your day?
I think 6:15, 6:30, in and around that time
Okay.
is the wake up time. And I think the next 2 hours are good self time, a little bit of reading, a little bit of catching up, but mostly a good 1 hour walk, sometimes 1 hour, 15 minutes, 1.5 hours.
Where in Bombay do you walk, on a treadmill or?
No, I don't walk on the treadmill because
Yeah.
I think as you grow older, your knees get screwed. So I just walk in a small garden that we have downstairs in
Oh,
the building.
just in there
It's a
you go
nice
around
one.
and
Otherwise, I
around.
used to go next door to the Breach Candy Club, but now after the coastal road, I prefer the garden there. But it's just a lot of alone time. Sometimes it's extreme alone time, and sometimes I do 7 calls and catch up with everyone at that particular point in time, wake them up or get them into the spotlight, or they're in different time zones. And then I think you're into not being in control with your life because you got a series of things that you need to do, you have to do, appointments you need to make, normal chronological sequence of what you want to do that happens. But I try and balance at least 3 to 4 to 5 hours of my own time in what I want to do every day.
No, so I'm asking, what is your exercise routine other than your 1 hour of walking? Is there any other? Is there
And I do yoga
meditation?
3
Is there
times a week
yoga 3 times a
with a
week with an
teacher who
instructor?
comes home. Yeah.
And meditation
That's in that 1 hour in
in
that
the
context. I think today, I'm in the last 4 months, I've made this note where I need to do about 15, 20 to half an hour of meditation, which I'm not getting that far on. Zarina does an incredible job on that. And then I want to play at least one game of chess every day, which I'm not getting to do. I'm
yes,
trying to get my left brain a little bit
I
more
heard that
oiled.
you started taking up chess and you do it quite seriously, and
I'm
like
trying to
everything
play a
else that you
game.
do, you
I'm
do
trying
it
to play a game a day.
competitively and you do it
I'm trying to play a game every day,
seriously.
partly because I think you have to open up your left brain a little bit into things. But you see, I think a lot of one does in the day is pushing the envelope, innovation, creativity. So the reason I said that I also want to continue to tell stories and do something in media is because I didn't want to let that innovative, out of the box thinking, creative juices get stunned into the normal things that go into the grit and grime of building an organization and a company and everything that goes with that. So that's my sort of pressure cooker off there. And I genuinely meant that. Some people say, "So what do you do to recreate?" I'm saying reading a script and thinking about how this movie could visualize is a very it's great recreation.
That's quite amazing. Um, so one of the things that you talked about is actually Swades.
Yeah.
So why did you create Swades? And and what do you see happening there?
So I think we started our this not-for-profit literally when we rented our first office when we started UTV back in 1990, and that's where it sort of started.
In 1990.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a strong message because I think people think you only give back when you have white hair or money in your
Yeah,
pocket.
lots of money in your pocket,
Yeah,
and you have
yeah.
and you
Loss
give
being
two
a subjective
percent,
word, but
two
yes,
percent, 5%, maybe a CSR, and you're
yeah.
saying no, okay, no, please
Yeah,
dwell on this a
at that
little
stage,
longer.
that's what it was, and I think we started off at a very early stage. It wasn't a foundation; it was just a small old age home and a creche and an orphanage, and I think it grew from there. But it didn't grow more because resources were not there. But it kept growing. It's not like it was stagnating with that. Then we went into rural India. We started doing water for about 40, 50 villages, which is still sizable. And then the real event was when we divested UTV to Disney. That's the first time I would say I went from negative cash balance to positive cash balance in my life and non-borrowed money to borrowed money. Otherwise, for my daughter Trisha's education, it was borrowed money. So when people said, "Oh, you had a liquidity event," I said, "But you must look at all the things I had to pay back on that I had leveraged myself on just at that liquidity event." Then the liquidity event kind of shrinks in perspective at that stage. But I think that's the time Zarina and I both felt, now what do we want to do with this? And we now have the opportunity and we have the resources
And
and
to do it
we
at
have the
scale.
inclination.
And to do it at scale.
Yeah. Then we decided that we wanted to do it at scale.
So is that the legacy? What is the legacy that you want to leave?
I'm not a big legacy person, I
No,
have to say.
you don't think it's important to leave a legacy of any
No, I
sort?
mean, I can't identify with it because I'm just saying now, what is on my tombstone? How do I circle back and look at my tombstone with a drone at that particular point in time? I don't have that visual in
Beautifully
my
put.
mind. I
Beautifully.
don't have that visual in my mind that my spirit comes out. It's like a drone and it's
No,
staring at
but
this.
people talk about
But just to finish that off, so I mean, to me, in the present, if I can live life on my own terms, that's a legacy. Because now that's what I can remember. What I can't remember, how can I figure out what I need carved on something that is not there? And I can understand if you're a king and you're a pharaoh and that's how it works, and therefore you need a pyramid or a sphinx. But otherwise,
no, but to create maybe an institution which you say,
so
okay, will transcend my lifetime and maybe generation. I know enough of my business colleagues
no,
who
and
all
that's a fair
create
point.
institutions.
So that's a fair point. So that I was coming to that part there. That to me, if I today, for me personally, the legacy is to live life on my own terms and the present and the fullest at that moment, and have a great balanced life and a strong family.
Mm.
That's one part of the legacy. The legacy of then starting to say, I'll build an institution and leave it for the long term. Yes, of course, that is there. But again, that has its own vision and it morphs. So there is more inheritance and legacy in that context. But yes, I mean, I think in the not for profit, we built it in a manner, Swadesh Foundation, that it should continue because the model is such that it can be continued by anyone anywhere. Now, even if we don't continue as a family, but if that model is taken by more people, because they said long time backs for this foundation, to me, that's also a legacy.
Are you trying to do that? Are you trying
Today,
to get
absolutely. We're
other
trying to
people to replicate your model?
institutionalize the model because I think we've really cracked a very entrepreneurial approach to giving back.
So thank you very
Not at
much.
all. It
I'm
was a very
really
enjoyable conversation.
privileged to have you here as a friend, as somebody that I have known in various capacities. We were also, as I said earlier, same alma
Yeah,
mater,
yeah, yeah,
Sydenham.
yeah.
I've been a member of your board. I've also been a part of your advisory, and I continue to be on Swadesh. But it's just such a great privilege being with you because what I really appreciate, Ronnie, is your honesty, your openness, your ability to synthesize what you have learned in very simple and very clear ways. I don't mean to flatter you,
Yeah, no,
but I'm really really happy and proud to have you as a friend and have you on my show.
that's really very
So
nice. And
thank
I
you
feel
very much.
blessed.
But again, so thank you very
Thank
much.
you.